everybody, welcome back to my channel. I cannot believe we are already doing a March reading wrap up, but I am so excited to go through the books. I feel like this month I definitely prioritized fantasy. I read a lot of fantasy, and I also did start a pretty substantial reread. So I did a lot of rereading. I did not read as much on my e-reader. So my goal for next month is to do some more e-reader reads because I feel like I did not give my Kobo enough love this month. But without further ado, let's get into the books. The first book I listened to was an audiobook, and it was Why Are You Mad at Me by Meg Josephson. This is a nonfiction audiobook, self-help oriented, which was definitely a step out of my comfort zone because up until this point, I've pretty much exclusively read memoirs. I have not picked up a lot of self-help books. This book definitely changed my outlook on life. I gave it a 5 stars, which I was not expecting. This made me feel so seen. It was so relatable, and it genuinely had some really good insights and tips. I feel like this year I have really prioritized my mental health journey and just kind of healing from past traumas and behaviors that I've picked up from those traumas. And I feel like one of those behaviors is kind of that people pleaser mindset where I just kind of like assume that everybody's mad at me or angry at me or upset with me. And so I was very drawn to this book because I thought it would kind of teach me more about why I maybe have that behavior and some different strategies I can try to kind of help with that. And I ended up recommending this book to my therapist because I was like, this book is freaking amazing. I was very, very impacted by it. I also loved how she kind of built anecdotes into the book from patients that she had worked with. So it was very easy to read. It wasn't super full of like psychological jargon. It was easy to read, and it was just so relatable and great. And at the end of each chapter, there's affirmations and like questions you can ask yourself. It's really awesome. I recommend it to anyone who may be struggling with a similar mindset to me. It's very good. It's a quick and easy read. It was like a 7-hour audiobook. So I definitely recommend. Alrighty, so like I said, I was in a huge fantasy mood this month. So the next book I picked up was 5 Broken Blades by May Corland. I gave this a 4.5 stars. I was really sucked in right off the bat, and then towards the middle, it got a little bit slow for me, but the ending was freaking amazing, and I need to read the second book in the series. A lot of people were complaining, saying they didn't like how almost every character was like coupled up with someone, but I kind of liked that because I felt like all of the couples were like so different and they were going through such different things. So I was super interested. Also, this copy, beautiful. I got this from Books A Million in the clearance section. This would be like so expensive if I bought it at normal price, but this is really good. I need to read the next book. I was very invested. Then I picked up The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. This is the first Catherine Center book that I've read, although I have been wanting to check out her books. One of my classmates really likes this author and was like, you need to read some of her books. So I ended up getting The Rom-Commers. This also is a beautiful copy. I gave this a 4 stars. I really liked this a lot. I found that Catherine Center has very funny writing. Like there were moments where I was just laughing out loud at our narrator just because she's so naturally funny. And I just was already rooting for her. Another thing is I'm such a sucker for romance books, or any books, but particularly romance books set in the entertainment industry because I work in arts and entertainment. You know, I'm a theater professional. So I love seeing that represented. Granted, they are screenwriters in this, so it's not fully theater, but it's definitely still the arts, which is something that I am super duper passionate about and always push for in any space. So I get really excited when I find books centered around the arts, but I love this. This was really good. I definitely want to check out more of her books for sure because I loved the funny banter, the dialogue, the pacing was also great. Although I will say I did think that they fell in love a little bit too late in the book, or at least they realized their feelings for each other a little bit too late. But the story of her becoming a screenwriter, like professionally, was paced well. The romance, the pacing could have been a little bit better, which is why this is just a 4, but I did really like this. Then I read a book on my Kobo from NetGalley. I read Rewrite the Stars by Lindsay Hemmerhoff, I think is how you pronounce it. I gave this a 3. I thought the premise was really cute. I really liked the idea of it, but the writing was just very one note for me. And I had the opposite problem with this one that I had with the rom-commers, in that these people fell in love way too quickly. Like, it was like chapter 4, chapter 5. Granted, they did have a history, so it was kind of second chance, but I felt like it was very rushed. But I did like the premise of the story and kind of the setting and all of that, which is why it landed a 3 for me. Like, it was cute, it did what it needed to do, it just didn't wow me. All right, so as I've said in past monthly wrap-ups, I'm trying to read classics this year, at least 10 classics, so I try to read 1 a month. So the classic that I picked up this month was Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I picked this one up because I've read kind of all of the dystopian classics, is kind of what I like to call them, like Fahrenheit 451, Lord of the Flies, 1984, like those kinds. Animal Farm is another one, like ones kind of similar to that. I like to call them the dystopian classics. That's probably not the right name for them, but I hadn't read this one. So I picked this up in a bookshop a little bit ago, and I was like, I just need to read it. I'm giving this a 3.5. I think for the message of the story, I think it really hits home, and it makes the reader uncomfortable and weirded out, which I think books like this are meant to do. I really loved the middle when our character kind of leaves the society and kind of meets all of these other people that live outside of the society that are labeled as savages. I really liked that middle part. I thought it was monumental to the progression of the story. I was really interested in it. The beginning was a little rough for me. I didn't super love the beginning, but I understand sort of why it was there. It was there to kind of set up the setting of this world and kind of how everything was. But for me, it just, the formatting was a little bit weird. Like, I felt like it was formatted weird to a point where I couldn't super understand what was going on. I guess that would be sort of my biggest gripe with this book, is the formatting, but I think it was good. Like, overall, it's definitely not my favorite of the dystopian classics, but I'm glad that I read it, and I'm glad that I retained information from it. Then I listened to the audiobook of And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. I gave this a 4.25 stars. It had such cute, cozy vibes, especially since right around the time I was listening to it, we were kind of dealing with some snow and snowy weather, so it kind of fit perfectly. I really love B.K. Borison's writing, and the first iteration in this standalone series, First Time Caller, I gave a 5 stars. This one, I don't know. I think for me, there was just a few things along the way that I was kind of like, it doesn't hit as hard for me as the first one. I feel like the first one was like very much gave me the 5-star feeling. This one, not quite, but it's like I can't pinpoint exactly what it is that didn't give me the 5-star feeling, but I still liked it. I still thought it was cute. So a 4.25 is kind of where I've landed for that one. It was really, really sweet, and I love how it's kind of like the single dad trope, but not. Like, it's an interesting twist on the single dad trope, which I really, really like. And I loved just both of their stories. They both were going through so much, and the way that they were able to help each other was just so beautiful to me. I really, really liked that. Okay, I'm gonna have to rapid fire through this next section because I started a reread of the Grishaverse series. Now, this is the first iteration of the Grishaverse series, which consists of the Shadow and Bone trilogy. There are also 2 duologies, the Six of Crows duology and the King of Scars duology, which I'm planning to do rereads of in subsequent months, so April and May. But I just focused on the trilogy, which kind of gave me a little bit of a fantasy overload. Again, this is my favorite fantasy series of all time, so I could make a whole entire hour-long video essay just about this series, but I will spare you my excited ranting. First book, Shadow and Bone, I gave 5 stars. as I did the first time I read it. For me, what sticks out about this book is the pacing. It is so perfectly paced for a fantasy. I feel like when I picked up this series, I was in high school and I really struggled with fantasy because I felt the books were so slow moving. So I gave this book a shot and I flew through it. And every time I reread it, I still fly through it just like I did in high school. It's got perfect pacing. The world building is not super complex and it's very easily explained. Like, it makes a lot of sense to the reader in the way that it's explained. And the characters are instantly compelling. Like, 4 chapters in, you're invested in them and their story, particularly Alina. So I love the characters. There's so many characters throughout this series, but all of them are so special and just important to me. So I obviously love this book. Then we have Siege and Storm, which is my favorite in the trilogy, which means it gets a 5-star from me. I mainly love this one because it heavily introduces Nikolai, who is my favorite character in the entire Grishaverse series. I love him. I love his lore. I love his banter and his just attitude on life. Like, he is just, I love him so much. I feel like they go a little bit more into the lore in this one. You learn a lot of stuff in this one, and it's just a really fun book, and again, perfectly paced. Like, everything happens when it needs to happen. You don't feel like there's a lot of filler. There is just like plot the whole time, and I love that, and I think it's awesome. The last book gets a 4.25. Now, the reason that this book is not a 5-star book is the end. And if you talk to a Grishaverse fan, you will understand why a lot of us are upset with the end. I won't spoil it for you because I do want you to read the series. Alina does technically get a happy ending, which is enjoyable to me. I do like where she ends up, but I am just a little bit frustrated about a specific thing that happens in the end. I think she could have still had her happy ending without the event that happens at the end of the book. I think she still could have figured it out and made it work. But yeah, so this one is not a perfect book just because of the end, but this one is also very well paced and has some great characters, and several characters die in this one as well, which is just gut-wrenching and devastating. One of my favorite characters in the series dies in this one. I'm not going to say who it is because that's a major spoiler, but that character dies in this one, and the first time I read it, I was genuinely like devastated, and I still get devastated every time I read it. Then I listened to the audiobook The Teller of Small Fortunes. I landed on a 2 stars for this. I wanted to like it. I wonder if I just listened to it at the wrong time because I overloaded myself with fantasy books. But this one, I don't know. The stakes felt so much lower. I feel like the sort of main plot didn't really pick up until about halfway through the book. And then it was just kind of boom, 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 everything happening. But even then, like, I wasn't super invested in that storyline. And so I kind of was like, not a huge fan of this. So I get a bit 2. I think it was a cute, cozy fantasy, which is kind of what I needed in that moment. But I honestly think I've read a couple cozy fantasies. I feel like they're not my vibe. I feel like I don't like cozy fantasies because the plot is very understated. It's not as intense and it focuses more on like the world building and the characters. But I like fantasy books with plot. I like fast-paced, epic, awesome fantasies. And I feel like every cozy fantasy that I've tried to pick up has not given me that vibe. So I honestly think that cozy fantasy is just a subgenre of fantasy that I don't really like. I like fantasy adventure, that kind of realm. But I don't know. I guess I would have to find the right book. And the last book that I'm going to be talking about today is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I landed on a 3.5 for this one as well. I think there was a lot of takeaways that I could definitely use and apply to my life. I think the Let Them Theory is a great theory, and I learned a lot about it and how I can, apply some of the things that she said to my life as a person who struggles with, you know, people being angry at them or being frustrated, who is always worried about losing people, that kind of thing. I feel like that theory, or this theory, is very pertinent to my life, and I could definitely use it. The thing that was off for me about this book was I felt like a lot of the advice was kind of parenting advice. Like, you know, Mel would give genuine advice, and then it would kind of transition into like parenting tips in each chapter. And I kind of was like, okay, I'm not a parent, so like I feel like a lot of this is not applicable to me. So I think, but she did say at the beginning of the book, at the end of this book, I'm going to give you some parenting tips and how you can use this theory as a parent. But then I felt like she did that throughout the book anyway. And so it was just frustrating for me because I wasn't a parent. And so I was like, I feel like a lot of this advice I can't even take because it doesn't apply to me. And so I was like, if you're going to write a self-help book, I feel like you should put stuff in there that genuinely anyone and everyone could relate to. And if you wanted to kind of take a more parenting approach to this, I feel like you could almost write like a novella that you could like pair with it, that's specifically for parents, or again, just put all of that stuff in the back like you said you would. I don't know. That was just kind of frustrating for me, but overall, I do think I gained a lot from reading that book. I learned a lot. It definitely was not as good as Are You Mad at Me, but it kind of gave me similar tips, similar advice. So I did learn something from it. But as far as self-help books go, it wasn't super my favorite. Granted, I've only read 2 self-help books, so maybe my mind will change, but that is how I felt about that book. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really enjoyed filming this video. Comment down below your favorite book that you read this month. I am so intrigued to hear. I love getting book recs. Speaking of books, check out my social media in the description box below. I post lots of bookish content on my Instagram, TikTok, and you can check me out on Goodreads and Fable to see what I'm reading in real time. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!